In this video, we will be discussing exponential functions of the form y is equal to b to the power of x plus q. Firstly, we need to discuss the effects of q. This causes a vertical shift. So a positive q, or where you say q is greater than naught, the graph would be going upwards. It would shift upwards. Then q less than naught, the graph would shift downwards. The horizontal asymptote is shifted up q values, or q units, and is the line y is equal to q. The effect of A, the sign of A, determines the shape. So it determines whether it curves up or down. So we say for a value of b that is greater than naught but less than 1, where a is greater than naught, we say it's positive, it shifts downwards like this and reflects about the axis, or the horizontal asymptote. We then say if a is negative, then the graph goes upwards. Just remember that this is only for when b is greater than naught or less than 1. It's very important to pay attention to these signs. Functions, especially exponential functions, are very easy when you pay attention to the rules. And especially make sure that when you're looking at a value of b that's between 0 and 1, the rules change for when b is greater than 1, like you'll see here below. When a is greater than 0 and b is greater than 1, we see a different situation. So let's draw the set of axes, and we'll say that a actually goes upwards when you've got b greater than 1 and a greater than 0. As in, when a is positive and b is greater than 1, the reverse happens to what we saw above. And when a is negative, we see the same, a reflection about the horizontal asymptote. This is where people get confused very often, because they can't understand why sometimes a is positive but it goes upwards, and then sometimes it goes downwards, but it's all in the value of b. Let's discuss the characteristics of an exponential equation. We need to discuss the domain and range, as well as the standard form of the function y is equal to ab to the power of x plus q. We know that the domain of the function is defined by all values of x. X is an element of real numbers. As you can see, anything to the power can be anything real. So if you have b to the power of minus infinity, it'll also work if b is to the power of infinity. Now the range is dependent on the sign of a. So if you have a negative a or a positive a, the range will vary accordingly, because you'll either be in the second or the fourth quadrant, or the first and the third quadrant. Now we've got a greater than naught, meaning it's positive. We say that y is equal to a times b to the power of x plus q. This is a very important rule. So we say b to the power of x is positive. When you say a times b to the x and it's greater than 0, that's good. That means it's also positive. These are all the criteria that you need to work through before you plot. Now you say a b to the power of x plus q is greater than q, because we add q on both sides. We then say the function is greater than q. Reason being that q is your horizontal asymptote. So your range would be y is greater than q, and y is an element of all real numbers. For a less than naught, we do the similar sort of process. We know that's negative, so we said y is equal to a b to the power of x plus q. We then say b to the power of x is less than naught, or is greater than naught, and a b to the power of x is less than naught. I suppose b to the power of x could actually never be less than naught, no matter what exponent you use. And once again, we see the a b to the power of x less than naught. When you add the q, it should also be less than naught. And once again, you see y or f of x is less than q. This would be a range, as well as f of x is an element of all real numbers. So that is just basically a complicated way of saying it's your asymptotes that you are limited by. So we'll do a couple of examples and you'll be able to see the difference. Just make sure that you remember this kind of rule very well. So when a is positive, you need to have y be greater than q. Just check for that. And then you've got a negative. You need to say that y is less than q. And that's your range. Easy game.